Hey guys, a video for our healthcare in Japan playlist. So we made a video recently for our myths about Japan playlist. There was a myth related to healthcare in Japan that triggered a whole heap of conversation between people about the Japanese healthcare system. So I just thought I'd make a video because this week I happened to experience a little bit more of the Japanese healthcare system. Those of you who haven't seen our healthcare playlist yet, if you're interested, have a look. There's loads of healthcare stuff on there. As an old man, I've had lots of opportunity to experience the Japanese healthcare system, and it's very good. It's a socialized healthcare system, which means that everybody has to pay a percentage of their income every year to insure themselves for their healthcare. So then what happens is once a year you get invited to come and have a health check if you want one, and if you want one it's free. If you want to include some cancer checks as well, checking for cancer, pay an extra, it's about $20, and they'll do all the cancer checks as well. So pretty good system. And then if they find anything that requires some further investigation, anything that they don't like the look of, they might want to have a closer look at, they invite you back to come back, and they do some more stuff, which is what I was there for last week. Just old man checks, make sure the old man's not falling apart quicker than he should. And there's a few things that struck me. They've got a couple of new systems. One is because they've brought in the My Number card, or as they call it, the My Number card, which is sort of like an ID card for everybody, and they're using it to connect everything. So your tax and your healthcare and everything's connected to your My Number card. So the first thing you do when you walk into this particular hospital is go to the sort of a front counter thing, which is actually sort of like their counting section as well as their reception counter, and they have a little reader there and it has facial recognition. So you put your My Number card in and it takes a photo of your face, and then that goes into their system then, and then you get your sort of like it's not really a membership card, but you also have a card for that particular hospital, or usually any hospital or any clinic you go to, they'll give you a sort of a special card that you can use every time you go there. So that just basically means that when they put that in the system, up comes all your records, which is a good idea. But the funny thing is, typical Japanese style, some of you might remember the Japanese government said a few years ago that their goal was to make Japan paperless, so that we use less paper, because Japan is notorious for using paper for everything and overusing it, and so they've brought in all these amazing electronic systems. So the first one is that My Number card thing, so you put that in that reader, and then you go to another machine and you put in your hospital card, and it reads that, and then if you already have an appointment, what it'll do is it'll print out. There's actually a full-size printer next to the reader that prints out an A4 piece of paper that says what time your appointment is and what window you need to go to, right? Which some would say is not necessary, because all it really needs is a screen that says what time your appointment is and what window you need to go to. This particular hospital is a brand new one, and it's laid out very efficiently. Sort of reminded me of the Toyota car manufacturing plant. So it's sort of like it's in sort of a sort of production line. So the front areas where they do their initial checks, and then the next areas for this particular thing, and all the way back. So it'll tell you what counter. So from A to G or H or whatever it was, you go to that counter, and then at that counter you put your card in. So I'll just back up a minute. Instead of it saying on a screen, go to counter E and your appointment's at 10:45, it prints an A4 piece of paper that says go to counter E, your appointment's at 10:45, right? So you take your A4 piece of paper to counter E, and then you hand it to the person behind the counter, and they get a plastic A4 file, and they put it in the plastic A4 file, and then they give it back to you and say, go wait outside door number 7. Now, it's very efficient. The system is very efficient. Usually, the delay is usually right at the start, and then once you get into the system and start rolling, you go through pretty quickly. You don't spend a lot of time waiting around hospitals usually. You know, it's usually pretty efficient. So they'll hand you back your piece of paper with this in this plastic file, and so go wait outside door number 5 or whatever it is. You sit outside door number 5, and they have a big display up on the wall that says, you know, door number 1, door number 2, and it's examination rooms, right? There's a doctor in each one. You know, examination room number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, and then next to it says who the next person is. So when you look at your piece of paper, it has a number on it. It's just a random number. It's nothing to do with the My Number thing. It's just what your number is that day for the system. And it'll say, you know, 142, and you sit there and you wait, and then every now and again, bing, and you look up, and it'll say, you know, number 120, go in door 3, right? So I sat there and ping, 142, okay, go in door 5, okay, and you go up to the door and tap on the door. It's a polite thing, sumimasen, onegaishimasu, and you go in and see the doctor. Sorry guys, Mozzie in the car. You go and see the doctor, and then he says, oh, okay, I want you to have an X-ray. So, all right, please go to counter number, you know, counter G, and you go to counter G, and he's printed a piece of paper and put it in your file, and you take it to counter G, and you hand it to them, and then they go, right, go sit outside door number 3, right? They're really efficient. Wait outside door number 3, and then the X-ray guy, what do they call him, radiologist, comes out and says, you know, please come, and calls your name, and they always check. That's another thing. Every step, they ask you your name and your date of birth, right? Which is pretty funny because I'm the only huge foreigner that walks around that hospital. But ask you your name and your date of birth, make sure they got the right patient, which is fair enough. Japanese people only have 2 names usually, the family name and the given name. So if your name's like Yoshi Suzuki, there's probably a lot of Yoshi Suzukis walking around that hospital. So fair enough. So ask your name, go and get your X-ray, come back out. Now everything is on the computer. Absolutely everything's on the computer. But they still have to give you the piece of paper. So you come out of there and they've put another piece of paper in your folder. And this particular day, by the end of the day, there was like 6 pages in there, and then they gave me another 4 or 5 pages of explanation for the next time I came. Next time you come, we're going to do this. So here's your 4 or 5 pages of explanation for this. So by the time you finish, you end up with this huge folder of paper, and at the end of it, when you finish for the day, you go to that front counter that's sort of like their accounting counter, and you go to that accounting place, and you hand them the file, and they say, please take a seat, and you go take a seat, and then it goes out the back to the accounting people who process it, and then it comes back and they call you, and they give you another piece of paper, right? So by now you got this huge folder of paper, so they give you another piece of paper, and they say, take it to the terminal over there. There's a terminal near the exit, or 2 terminals, and you go over there and you put your hospital card in, and it comes up and says how much money you owe, right? So it says how much money you owe. So okay, so then you put in the money or use your credit card or whatever you want to do. It wasn't much either. Just usually it's a small percentage of whatever they've had to do. So you know, it might be $20 or something that you got to pay. And so you go over there and you pay it, and then it prints out A4 piece of paper. Oh yeah, I had a script as well for medicine, and then it prints out an A4 receipt, a bill first for the procedures that they've done that day, and then another piece of paper that's a receipt, right? Which you should keep. Usually you should keep those, because if you spend more than $10,000 in a year on medical stuff, that they actually give you a tax deduction or something, so you're supposed to keep that. But it's funny because by the time you get home, you've got this massive pile of paper, and most of it you just throw it away. There might be one that says your next appointment on it. You want to keep that. You want to keep your receipts, and any sort of instructions for the next time you come, maybe, unless they're really obvious and you don't need them. You don't need to read it. And that's it, and all the rest gets thrown away. So it really struck me. It was actually a couple of days before we released that myth video, and so it was sort of in my mind when I was reading all those comments from everybody. So it's funny, it's just typical Japan, you know, they've got this latest technology, but at the same time they cannot give up their paper. Some of you might remember a story I told recently about going to the bank to do a bank transfer, and you know, the paper and the stamp, the inkan thing. And the government has said that they want to do away with both those things. The government has said, the Japanese government has said that they want to make Japan paperless, so we stop using so much paper. And they've also said they want to do away with the inkan, which is the stamp that people use. And the government said that, you know, they want to do away with paper and the inkan. But the reality is, and some of you might remember years ago when the government first said that, I made a video about that, about Japan going paperless, and made a prediction that nothing was going to change. That the government saying this is what we want to do, we want to go paperless, we want to stop using the stamp. I made a prediction at the time that it wasn't going to happen. And it's the way it is. The Japanese culture is sort of, you know, if something's going to be properly done, then there should be paper involved. And there's a fear of making mistakes. And if everything's on paper, they have a feeling that it's less likely to be mistakes if everything's on paper. So just reams and reams of paper. And when you look around the hospital, you know, you look at how many people are coming in and out of that hospital, and every single one of them has had at least half a dozen pieces of paper during that experience. And if you had any sort of serious procedures, some of you might remember, I spent 5 weeks in hospital a few years ago, and the amount of paper, I had a serious folder. By the time I got out of that place, I had a massive folder of paper. It was amazing. So, terribly wasteful. But everything else about it is amazing. You know, their system is really good. The doctor usually doesn't look at that paper terribly much because he's got it all on his computer. So when you talk to the doctors, if you talk to the doctors, the funny thing, when I was there last week, I went in to have this procedure done, and there were 2 nurses there who sort of got me where I needed to be. And the doctor was sitting at a desk with his back to us when I walked in, and then they did a procedure. I had to go to sleep, so I went to sleep, and I woke up in another room. So that particular day, I had the doctor do a procedure to me, and I never saw him and never spoke to him. I saw his back in the corner of the room, and that was it. And that's really common in Japan too. Their idea of bedside manner, they don't really have an idea of bedside manner. It's sort of normal. I mean, the doctors here are excellent, absolutely excellent, but it does take some getting used to that they don't have that concept of bedside manner is important. They don't have that at all. They don't think that's important. You know, you don't need to be having chats with your doctor. You don't need to be... I mean, they do. If it's important, they need to explain something to you, or they want to ask questions or something, you know, they will. But the contact usually between the doctor and the patient is kept to a bare minimum. Most of the things that are done by the nurses. The dentist too is the same. And the actual contact with the doctor, between doctor and patient, or dentist and patient, is kept to an absolute minimum. So just the way they are, I remember when my wife was pregnant, went and saw a doctor, and she went in, and everything was done by the nurses, and he looked at the paper and looked at the computer, didn't even look at her, or I was irrelevant, didn't even look at her. Everything was done by the nurses, and then he just looked at the results, and and said a few things, and then off we went. That was the end of it. And that's really normal too. There's no great greeting between the doctor and the patient, no good saying goodbye or anything at the end. It's just this really, really distant sort of relationship you have with the doctor. But they're excellent. They're absolutely excellent. Everything that I've had done here has been absolutely first class and really, really good, and the cost is really low. That 5 weeks that I had in hospital, I think the total cost was about $800. Total cost. I mean, the insurance costs a bit every year for a family of 4. It depends on your income. It's tied to your income, but for us, family of 4, it's about $8,000 a year. So it is pretty high. But when you look at what you get done, you know, kids, adults have to pay, I think it's about 10% or something we have to pay when we get things done, which is, you know, it means you go to the dentist, and the dentist, you know, have something done at the dentist and put a crown on or some big job like that, and it might be $20. Right, so it's amazing, and quite often it'll be ridiculous. If it's just a small thing that they do, it'll be like $5, you know, and the doctor will be the same. Go get something done at the doctor, and it's $7, you know, because you're only paying a certain small amount. And for kids, you pay nothing. So anything done, any medical stuff for kids is free. So when you look at what value you get over a year. You know, we don't hesitate if the kids have a cold or something and the wife wants to take them to the doctor. We don't hesitate because it's free. You go to the doctor for free, so she'll take them for any reason, and all their medicine's free as well. So it's really, really good. It is really, really good. You know, some people are scared. Some people have come from backgrounds where if you hear the word socialised, it scares some people. But, you know, socialised healthcare is just amazing. I mean, Australia has a pretty similar system. One of our Patreons was saying he's from Canada, and it's a pretty similar system in Canada as well. You know, it's a really good system. And then people who don't have any money, you know, older people or poor people or whatever, because it's tied to your income, you know, that yearly payment, you know, if you're a pensioner or you're only on a small income, you know, you have to pay very, very little every year, maybe nothing if you earn less, you know, below a certain amount, you won't have to pay a thing. So it's an excellent system. It is an excellent system, and the quality of the healthcare here is amazing. Those couple of things I mentioned, you know, the waste of paper is a bit of a funny thing, and the doctors with their their lack of bedside manner thing. At first, that's a bit of a surprise, but when you get used to it, it's not a problem because, you know, you're not really there to make friends. You're there to get good health care, and you will. You know, you will get good health care. So it's amazing. It really is good. It really, really is good. You know, they do a really good job. They look after you really well. The nurses are a bit the same. You know, they're a little bit distant as well, but they're kind. You know, they're kind and considerate, and it really is good. It's a very good system. So no doubt you'll hear some more stories underneath this video, because some of the people that watch our videos live here, and they'll have their own experiences of the healthcare system here. They'll probably back me up on that distant doctor thing. It is pretty funny at first. It takes some getting used to, you know. And anybody that's interested in this sort of thing, in the Japanese healthcare system, have a look at that playlist, because that playlist is full of all sorts of videos on all different aspects of Japanese healthcare. So if you're interested in that, have a look at that. So this video was just triggered by that myth video, and then my own experience the last week. That particularly the paper, it stood out again. It surprises me every time, because it wasn't a big deal that I was getting done there, but by the time I finished, this big folder of paper. What the heck? And then on your way out the door, you stop at that machine, get a couple more bits. By the time you get home, you've got this big pile of paper that you sit there and go, that's rubbish, don't need that, don't need that, don't need that, don't need that. There's always extra bits in there that you don't need, a general talking about your health care and your sugar levels, or something that's not relevant to you particular. That particular month, they're giving everybody this information about something, sugar or salt or exercise or something, and extra couple of pieces of paper about that. So, but it's good. It really is good. It really is a good system. You know, and compared to some of the systems in other parts of the world where people, you know, aren't so fortunate, you know, we're really lucky here to have such good healthcare, you know. So anyway, that's enough of that. Still in this borrowed car, by the way, guys, those of you who are keeping track of that story. Anyway, more videos coming.